Well, hello, Andrew here again, and this is episode 90. Yay! And today we're continuing through the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew's Gospel, and we're at chapter 5, verses 33 to 37. And here again we hear the words of Jesus. Again, you have heard it said to those of ancient times, you shall not swear falsely, but carry out the vows you have made to the Lord. But I say to you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let your word be yes, yes, or no, no. Anything more than this comes from the evil one. Well, I don't know how it strikes you, but it seems to me a little bit anachronistic in the 21st century. People don't tend to swear by things the way they once did. We make and we break promises, it's true, but we don't put up collateral for them. And I think that is the issue that Jesus is pointing here to, is that when we make a promise, there are going to be some consequences. That's what it seems to me that this is about. So that the oath breaker, the person who fails to deliver on what their promises, will suffer in some way. What we do is we simply hedge our bets and are known either for our constancy or for otherwise. We're known to be reputable, we're known to be reliable, we're known to be people who keep our word, or we're known to be people we need to be wary, that others need to be wary of. And make sure that we've got some safeguards in place before you enter into an arrangement with this person. The swearing of oaths. What was I going to say here? Pardon me. Perhaps the closest most of us get to oath making is in making promises to God when we're in tight situations. Have you ever done that? Lord, if you get me through this, then I will and the difficulty with that is so easy to forget when the crisis is past that we made a promise at all. This has not happened to me in a while, at least not that I remember. I am accountable for the promises I make to the Lord. It may be possible to renegotiate them, and I don't deny that's a possibility. You say, well, Lord, I did make this promise. Are we able to now talk about the deal? It may be, but they are not to be ignored. It occurs to me that making commitments in business is also a form of oath. When we enter into a contract with someone and then fail to keep our side of the deal, because we know that we can, this is a form of oath breaking. There are successful business people, for example, who get rich by working out who they don't have to pay. I mean, I've heard this reported to one of our own country's billionaires. How did you get rich? Well, I worked out who I didn't have to pay and didn't pay them. For example, subcontractors on large construction projects where the subby has limited resources and the main contractor has massive resources, that they know, the main contractor knows that they can weather the storm of court cases better than their subbies can if they lose. The subby can go bankrupt fighting for what is they're entitled to, and so that even if they win, they still lose. And they know that this will happen. They know that if the person who's paying the bills refuses to pay the bills and will make excuses as to why they shouldn't, they know that they're toast, because they know that this person actually has deeper pockets than them. And to actually fight it in court can cost them a lot more than the amount of money that they'll lose by just walking away. There is, for example, evidence that the current President of the United States has operated on this model and has put reputable businesses to the wall simply because they've wanted to be paid what was agreed. Now, I want to suggest that this is a form of oath breaking. Now, Jesus' response to all of this is that we need to be clear and clean. It's yes or no. And to follow up on our agreements, to deliver what we promised. To be the ones who actually say, yeah, well, that's what I said, and my word is as good as the deal being done. Jesus, in his epistle, says the same thing. He says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Now, I'm wanting to switch gears here, because, as I say, I'm interpreting this in our time. And I've encountered people who have tried to challenge me with this, yet your yes be yes or your no be no. That's what the Bible says. And I'm not suggesting, I'm wanting to switch gears and suggest that these are not the only possibility. I've been in situations where people have insisted on yes or no answers to a question. For example, about what I believe. Usually because they either want to hold me to it, to the answer, or they want to beat me with it. And that's a zero-sum game. I'm going to lose whichever way I go. We live in contentious times. Maybe they always have been. My hunch is, as I said, that these people would use Jesus' words as a biblical rationale, as a biblical bludgeon for their position. It's biblical. It's either yes or no. Anything else is of the devil. You don't try and put caveats around it. It has to be simple, straightforward, yes or no. Yet I want to suggest that this is to confuse categories. What we believe and what we might commit ourselves to are entirely different things. And a simple yes or no response often denies the subtleties of the discussion we're having, wanting to reduce it to a simple binary choice. So often the answers might be, it all depends, where the context is everything. The discussion we've considered, for example, over the last couple of episodes on divorce, illustrate the tension well. In the context of Jesus' time and place, his unequivocal position was totally consistent with his philosophy and his desire to protect the most vulnerable. So in that time, in that place, divorce for him was a no. Using this criteria, my hunch is that he would give quite a different answer today if he found himself in our setting in 21st century Aotearoa. In that sense, a simple yes or no is not adequate. If I were asked, do you agree with what Jesus says about divorce? I'm done if I answer yes or no. It all depends. If we're talking about Jesus in his context, where women were effectively treated as property and had little or no protection or prospects for safety and security if rejected by divorce, well, the man who is initiating this is free to move on. My answer would be no. I don't agree with divorce. If, in my context, 2,000 years later, in an advanced Western democracy, where women have full citizenship rights, although they may want to argue about that, I'd have to say yes. As I've said, it all depends. It all depends on the circumstances. It depends in terms of whether the law is being used fairly and justly, or whether it's been used to beat people up, and whether it's been used to disenfranchise people, and particularly the powerless. As you see, the issue may be more complex than we might imagine. So often I would have to say the answer is, well, it all depends. God bless you.